Hey, welcome back to Quad Pod. I'm Al Yates, and as you can see on the screen, we've got a gentleman called Breezy. Hi, Breezy. How are you?
I'm wonderful. My mom named me Andrew Breezy, but the world has mostly known me as Breezy for the past few years, so I figure I might as well embrace that. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely brilliant. And as we know, this we got introduced to each other by an Exeter City fan who's out in Chattanooga, Peter. So, Peter, if you get to hear this one, hope you're well, and things are going good. So, this is a update on both clubs, and it's interesting where SE Chattanooga are on the season, etc., which we'll go through in a little bit. I think we're going to touch on fans' ownership and stuff. Probably, I'm guessing Breezy's going to ask some questions about Exeter because it's probably the same sort of. I mean, we're sister clubs. We are in a community, but we don't know anything about each other really. So that's part of the show. Breezy, anything else you want to go through at the same time?
No, that's great. I'm sure I'll have lots of questions as things go, but I can't wait to dive in here because, look, the only reason I know who Exeter City is, just being completely honest, is because of Pete. And it does appear that we're kindred spirits, right? It appears that the hearts of modern football and then the hearts of our clubs are a little different, right? So at least that's how I view it. So I'm definitely interested in talking, and I can't wait to explore that more.
So if you see behind me, and I've deliberately put it up there, it says Exeter City fans are new owners, and that's a newspaper billboard from over 20 years ago. And the scarf is, don't laugh, is from 1980-81,
I love it.
and a famous FA Cup run where we beat Newcastle United 4-0, which I know that you'll be hearing all about Newcastle in what you call soccer at the moment. So that was a big win for us, and it's probably what got us hooked. And also, this shirt, I should point out, is actually the away shirt of last season, but we play in red and white stripes. So, in terms of our club, we don't know anything about you guys. We really don't know anything about you guys. So, where are you in the season? How's it going? What's it looking like at the moment?
Sure. So we are 9 games into our NISA season. NISA is the National Independent Soccer Association. In the United States, the leagues are not connected like they are in England. So the first division is disconnected. I know the Premier
Yeah.
League is technically disconnected, but you still have promotion and relegation. We don't have any sort of promotion or relegation, and we don't have connections between the two between levels unless they are part of the same league. Meaning, the USL, the United Soccer League, has 2 divisions with no pro rel. They're connected though via ownership. But the National Independent Soccer Association is not connected to any league. We are on the third level of the pyramid, and we have no promotion options and no relegation options. To make it even more complicated, the third division has 3 separate, fully sanctioned leagues in the third division, meaning these are not just regional leagues that funnel in together. These are completely separate entities that do not play each other except for possibly in our version of the FA Cup, the uh, the U.S. Open Cup. So it is a very different thing. But we are 9 games in. We are on top of the table. We have 7 wins, 2 draws, undefeated. We are four home wins and 1 draw, and 3 away wins and 1 draw. So it's been a very good season so far, and we have 16 goals scored, 2 goals allowed. Our 2 goals allowed, we've only allowed 1 from the run of play and 1 from a penalty. So the defense is very, very, very good so far this season. And we're feeling good about our title hopes this year. There'll be 24 league games. So we're a little less than half the way through, and that will culminate in November with playoffs,
Yeah.
followed. So we do, I mean, with all American sports, if you're familiar, it's always playoffs at the end, right? So
Yeah.
we'll have the regular season champion based on the table, but that won't mean anything. It'll be all about the playoffs. So they'll have a playoff. The playoffs will be in November, and we will hope to host those games and eventually, lift that trophy here on home turf at Finley Stadium. So that's kind of where we are in the season. We actually just announced a new signing yesterday, which I would imagine will be our last signing of the season. I mean, who knows? We've had actually a pretty terrible injury crisis the last two months, and we're still undefeated. So that's always good, and players are getting close to their returns. So you mentioned before we started recording that you guys just had the first day of preseason. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. So we are in, if you can call it summer. We just had the longest day, haven't we? So we're actually in the middle of a heat wave for England in terms of it's got up to 25 degrees Celsius, 30. So it's getting quite warm, but it's our
30 is hot. I lived in Italy for 2 years, and so my Celsius is good enough to know 30 is quite warm, especially for England.
Yeah, it's very warm for England. So all the players have been on holiday. We finished our season in May, and we had a really good season. Bit of background to us. We are a step-free club, as you call it. So we've got the Premiership, we've got the Championship, and League One. And below that, you have League Two, and then you have the Conference. Then you have the Conference North, you have the Conference South, and then below them you have multiple tiers. I can't remember how many tiers, but the pyramid is about at least 12 or 14 tiers. Now, the promotion and relegation, you can go all the way to the top. So at the moment, we got promoted the season before last that's just finished, and we finished second. We lost we should have won the championship on the last game of the season at home, but we didn't. So the new season that's just finished, we finished in the higher league, which is a lot more money, a lot more bigger clubs. We finished mid-table. So there's 24 teams in the league. We finished 12th, which is pretty good. We were very happy with that. This season, we are now under pressure because we're going to lose a few players, as always happens. We are crossing our fingers that one player in particular from a sell-on fee from Chelsea may get sold, where we might end up getting 20% of the transfer fee. And if that happens, that's a major impact. So, for example, in financial terms, that will be like just under half our annual turnover coming into the club. That's a lot of money. Yeah. And English football is really driven by money and big business, unfortunately. So I'm
a Fiorentina fan, and we just played West Ham in the Europa Conference League, which was a terrible loss. But I looked at the salaries beforehand, and West Ham, in the relegation zone for a lot of the season, had double the salaries of Fiorentina, who is a top 10 club in Italy and a top 7 with it's wild the power of just the capital and the money that's running around English soccer right now.
And that's where fan ownership comes in, because somebody did a table of our club, and they did some sort of mathematical calculation related to the estimated weekly salaries for players, which ours came out at around £42,000 for the total squad, and we're up against teams that are on 180,000, 200,000. So even in the same league, and that gets even worse, shall we say, which is where fan ownership has really come through. And hence, when we first started taking over our club 20 years ago, and we were in a real mess, we were trying to think, we were 2 leagues lower than we are now. And we've had a very gradual build up to coming back into League One. We got relegated about 7 years ago, and then we've just come back up. So, but the projection of where we're going is actually upwards at the moment. So I'm intrigued about your club, because we average about just under 7,000 at home. You're growing, aren't you? You're getting big crowds. There's a lot of buzz.
Absolutely. So we had about 4,000 last, which in the U.S. soccer crowds are not as big as they are, right? It's not the big sport here necessarily, but for a town our size, and I don't know how big is Exeter, by the way, or is Exeter even the city? I should know that, but I don't.
What area? Sorry. Exeter City, yeah, and they're behind me, so I'm being silly. It's 150 to 160,000 people in the city at best. In the catchment area with, and I'm talking within 30 miles probably, because English clubs are a lot closer together. You're probably talking 200,000, 220,000 people. Yeah, because we have a club that's 28 miles away. One of our rival clubs, they're a couple of leagues below. And then we have another club, our rivals, who are just got promoted out of the league we're in, right? And they are 40 miles down the road, and they get 15,000 at home. So it's, we're not doing too bad. But you're getting 4,000, you say?
We are. And so we had 4,000 last week. We're averaging about 3,000 on the season. Oddly enough, we have another team I mentioned there was different divisions, right? Or not even different divisions. There was multiple leagues on the same level of the pyramid. There's another team in another league that was put here in a very MK Dons type of way. It was put here with bad intentions and by an owner looking to actually put us out of business. And unfortunately, since there's not promotion relegation, it's not the whoever runs their best club wins. It's whoever wants to spend money on buying a franchise. It's a really messed up model. But we have 8.4 miles from stadium to stadium, and they draw around 1,000 people a game. They're much smaller than kind of what we do, and a big part of that is we are a fan-owned club. We're not a majority fan-owned club, to be clear. But we are also a partially fan-owned club, which is unique to American soccer. There's not another team in American professional soccer, or there wasn't, rather. There is one other now, but there wasn't in American professional soccer. We were the first. We were the first to do it outside of there's one NFL team that is fan-owned, and that's it. That's not common for things. So I think you see the special connection that Chattanooga as a city has. It's not only because of the fan ownership, but it is in part demonstrated by the fan ownership.
Yeah.
We've always done something. We were an amateur team for 10 years, and our biggest crowd ever was 18,227. We're a very similar size to Exeter. We have 180,000, I think, in our city, and then our metro area is a little bit bigger, but it's a small town, and this is a team that really means a lot to a lot of people. And to be honest, it's something that means a lot to me because this is my social, and I'm not the only one. This is my social community, right? This is the people that if I got hit by a bus would take care of my wife. This is the people that I plan my year around with. These are the road trips that we plan together with my friends. Are my friends from CFC, the Chatahooligans, are the supporters group that surrounds Chattanooga Football Club. And it's different. The community that surrounds CFC is what makes CFC special. It's not just it's about a game, of course, right? It's about a soccer club, and that's what it starts with. But it's far and away about more than that. It's about the community, and it's in the mission statement of Chattanooga Football Club, which is to make Chattanooga better through soccer, not to take away from Chattanooga or to represent Chattanooga, which they do represent Chattanooga, but not to take away from or just represent, to give back and make Chattanooga better through soccer. And they live that mission statement every day as a club. And I think that's one of the reasons you see such a strong community that surrounds it, and something that's really, really special with those who, again, we plan our whole lives around CFC. I don't do other things on game day. I go to all the games. I've missed one away game, and this isn't about me. There's others who were the same way, but I've missed one away game all year, or two now. I guess we played a friendly last week that I missed. One league away game. We went down to a second division team in the U.S. Open Cup, down to their house in Alabama. We drove 3 hours. They played their game an hour away from home for some reason, and we had more fans than they did. We had more supporters than they did, and we were over 3 hours away from home, and they were an hour away from home. It was supposed to be a home game for them, and it was a home game for us. And I mentioned some of those things to say I think that there's a part of modern football, and I don't want to make this all about modern football, but there's a thing about the modern game that's where it's no longer connected to the community, right? It's just an experience for 2 hours, and then people go home, and they've priced out the average fan, and they priced out the regular fan, and it's not about more than a game anymore. It's just about a couple hours. And while some people might choose to spend 2 hours at a game and that's their only connection, and I'm not here to criticize that, I think there's something really special about certain clubs, and Exeter seems to be one of those clubs as well, that really wants to be more than that and wants to be, a positive piece of the community rather than something that takes from the community. Does that seem fair to you?
Yeah, no, that is fair, and I'm going to give a plug to our new shirt sponsor. This is the one from last year, Carpet Ride, and there's a company called Hell Performance Motorbikes, and they operate globally. They sell brake calipers for bikes, and they're also working with some really top riders, and they bought into it. They're not into football, but the guy that is their CEO, I interviewed a couple of weeks ago, he bought into it because he was born in Exeter, right? His grandfather had been a fan. He lived within a half a mile of the stadium, and he'd seen all the good work that the community had been doing over the last 20 years, and he wanted to be associated with it. So when I interviewed him and asked him about his famous moments from football, as we call it, he had to be honest with me and say, look, I really don't know. That's not what this is about. It's about community. And like you, some of our fans, well, most of our fans travel great distances. So our average away game is probably about 3 hours, right? And our average away following this season just gone is 750 fans. And some of the bigger games,
I love that.
We're taking 1,500, 2,000, and it's not a surprise for a really big game. So, for example, we played Man United in Manchester, which is 3.5, 4 hours away. We took 10,000 fans away. But that's obviously a big FA Cup game and a once in a moment game. But,
a once in a moment for Manchester United. They got to play the mighty Exeter.
Exactly. And if you know Alex Ferguson, we're one of the few teams that played him in all of his time as manager of Manchester United that have not lost when they've played at Old Trafford, and we're very proud of that. So
you guys got the replay? You had a cup replay on that?
Yeah, we drew 0-0, and at the time we were. It's a bit of a. You've heard the Wrexham story, right? It's much better because we were 5 million in debt, just under, and we made £1 million out the game. First game, we made £500,000 out the second game, and that helped us get on the road to the right place. And there was 67,000 fans there, and Alex Ferguson made it a European game. So you had to get your vouchers for European matches. So all the Man United fans had to go, which is quite funny, but we thank you for that. So
yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, that's the thing, and that's the thing about the magic of the FA Cup. One of the things I think people maybe don't think about, at least over here, about the FA Cup, is that if you get a replay, it's not just getting to play and potentially winning. It can change the economic destination of your club drastically, because these bigger clubs have so much more money, and when they have to share a portion of it, it's unbelievable, and it can be so amazing. And you were talking about a player that you're potentially going to sell on, or get a sell-on fee rather. Hopefully that happens, and that can really just change everything. And my hope is someday American soccer will have that, but right now we have none of that. We have no promotion relegation. We have no sell-on fees.
Really?
Yeah. So the fan ownership was the reason we had fan ownership was several reasons, but in part because that other team that I mentioned earlier came to town and intended to put us out of business. They hired away the general manager, who you would call, the team president. They hired away the women's team president. They hired away most of the academy coaches, maybe not most, but many of the academy coaches, and then tried to buy Chattanooga Football Club. And the owners at the time, the founders, stood pat and said, no, we're not selling. This doesn't match our values. This doesn't match, what we want to do. And so they stood pat, and they did the ownership raise in part to give them a runway of money to go professional, to become a professional club. But unfortunately, it's a hard business. And so CFC is not. They have some new ownership. They have some money behind them now, behind us rather, that we didn't have before. So we're in a stable financial place, but it's really tough to make soccer or football work across the world without those transfer fees and without sending players up the ladder. And unfortunately, that's not a thing in American soccer currently. And I'm very much hoping it becomes a thing.
Well, where do you, obviously you've had the World Cup in first time around was 94?
Yes,
right?
94. That's
94?
correct.
I was going to say 98, but that was France. And you're due to have it in 3 years' time, aren't you?
26.
I'm planning to come, by the way.
Good.
And I did something really unusual because I actually saw the England semi-final in Moscow. Obviously, I'm not going to Moscow probably ever again, but hey. But point being is, do you see it's going to have a big impact on soccer in the States with what's coming in the next 3 years?
It will have a massive impact. So a lot of the people that I meet who are, so I'm 30, I'll be 35 this year. The 94 World Cup, I was 6 years old. I wasn't into soccer at the time. My parents weren't either. So I missed out on that. The people that I do know, and I know quite a few, who went to a game or who were able to be around a game or who were, involved, that's the genesis of a lot of their soccer fandoms. And even in 2014, so the U.S. missed the World Cup in 2018. In 2014, we had a huge increase in CFC everything. It was this giant catapult because the U.S. had a good run in 2014 of excitement, not even just on the field results, which were okay. The results were decent, and we got to we lost to Belgium, and it was but there's a lot of buzz and a lot of attention behind the U.S. team. And now to have it on home soil, to have a U.S. team that right now we just thrashed Mexico. I just got back from Vegas. I was in Vegas for the USA-Mexico game. I did not get to stay for the Nations League final against Canada, which we also won. But we're playing well. There's buzz there. There's Americans are really, with soccer, we tend to be kind of fickle. The general American fan comes around the Olympics and around the World Cup for the men or for the women. And there are definitely people, there are those of us who follow all the time and all we travel for the team and that's our thing. But for many people, it goes from, filling a soccer stadium, which most of our soccer stadiums here for Major League Soccer, as an example, are 20 to 30,000 seats, anywhere between that. They go to filling NFL stadiums, right? They go from 20 to 30,000 seats to 60,000 seats when the national team starts playing around for a World Cup. So we'll see what happens, but I expect it will be massive for the growth of soccer in this country. I think it will be massive for Chattanooga Football Club. And I think it will be massive for every soccer team in every community with a soccer team, because it's when you get a chance to introduce soccer on the stage, on the world stage, to a lot of people who weren't paying attention. And I don't have any thoughts that magically is going to make soccer the number one sport in America, right? That's not our history and our heritage, but it will grow, it will get bigger, and we'll see a lot of changes and a lot of positive energy. And I cannot wait. I will be going to every U.S. game in 2026 and whatever other games I can get to. Chattanooga is about 2 hours from Atlanta, and they'll have games in Atlanta. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait.
Well, as I say, I'm planning to come. And I've got a base in Seattle because my best man lives over in Seattle, married to an American girl. Hi Sharon, hi Paul, if you ever get to see this. And obviously, Atlanta, I know, is close to FC Chattanooga. So I'm hoping some of my friends at your end could help. So the Ladies World Cup is also coming up in Australia. Well, now women's football is a lot stronger in America, although England right now, it's prime time. It is exploded, and it is now, live matches on TV. It's the same level, national team, everybody's interested, right, which is brilliant. How are the US going to go in Australia?
Man, I feel good. So I always feel good about our chances, right? We are the dominant team, and we have been in women's soccer history. The problem is the rest of the world, as you just mentioned, is catching up. And the economic advantages that we once had, which is in college soccer, is massive here. Not just as a moneymaker, but as the funding behind it from these colleges. So these college programs are really, really creating and nurturing, not just creating, that's not fair, nurturing and developing and pushing forward athletes at a very, very high level. That's a thing that was not happening in the European game or anywhere in the world, really, for women's soccer. However, obviously, so a lot of big clubs have realized, whether it's modern football or whatever else it is, that there's a lot of money now in women's soccer. So it's only been a couple years since you really started to see it. But I'm terrified that this is the time that the rest of the world is caught up. Do I think we're the favorites? Sure, but I am not at all confident that we are gonna win it, because I think the rest of the world is catching up. The rest of the world is now putting real money behind. I mean, the money that a Manchester United, to use a club we've already mentioned, can put behind women's football if they choose. That's so much more than any women's club in this country would be. I mean, Arsenal, you look at what Arsenal's done, what Manchester City's done, what Paris Saint-Germain is theoretically doing, like what Wolfsburg has done, like there's what Barcelona and Real Madrid are doing. These are clubs that have so much economic might, and they're putting it now into women's soccer development. The time for and our domestic league is good. Don't get me wrong, it's good, but it's not. It doesn't have the backing of a men's side that's so developed. So I'm nervous. I'm excited. I'll be hanging on every kick and every goal, but I'm nervous that maybe the rest of the world is caught up enough that we're no longer at a big advantage.
Well, or just to share some inside information, and nobody's listening right at this point.
No, of course
obviously
not.
nobody's listening, because the England team would be very disappointed by what I'm going to say now. Just on the transfers, the first £500,000 transfer fee has happened in women's soccer, I believe. And I've forgotten her first name. She's called Russo. Her surname, England striker, is just moving for £500,000. Just gone straight out of my head. But we've just won the Euros. But the problem we have now is that there are 3 players that were in that squad have done their ACL knee injury. So we've got a bit of an injury crisis going into the World Cup. So because English people love making ourselves favourites, then losing, and then giving everybody a hard time. And a lot of people have built up the England team to basically walk the World Cup. I don't necessarily agree with that. And actually, my prediction is we're going to struggle. So we shall see.
As long as they don't try to sing "It's Coming Home," football's coming home for the women too. Maybe they can leave that one in the past and not put the jinx on them.
No, it's never going to happen. That'll happen all the time. It's the song, and it'll always be. And 66 was a long time ago. And I'll give you a bit of a crazy fact about England in 1966. One of the players was an Exeter manager, and I interviewed his son, because he's passed, unfortunately. I interviewed his son 4 episodes ago, and it was really brilliant talking to him. But yeah, we're crazy about 1966, but that's before my time, and I'm older than you, so we've never known winning a tournament. And you guys probably got more history than we have.
For the women, we do, right? And for the wild thing is in American soccer, or in U.S. soccer rather, if you want to wear a jersey that has stars on it, you got to wear a women's jersey. So I have a 3-star women's jersey. I don't have a 4-star. I should have worn it today. But it's the men's team hasn't done anything. We are very much, we're overconfident on the women's side mostly for good reason, based on history. But if I had a World Cup for the men, I would also celebrate it, even if it were, I guess, 50 years ago now. You gotta celebrate your wins, right, and not let them be forgotten.
I mean, when the English ladies won the Euros, I think there was 90,000 attendances, and they regularly get over 80,000 now for games. It is box office, and the TV has done a lot to help that, and it should be.
It should be. These athletes deserve it. Like, it's not. look, I think that men's soccer and women's soccer are different games, right? But
Yeah.
it's like I'm watching men's soccer in the third division. Why wouldn't I enjoy women's professional soccer? Like they're different. Like, but if I want only the highest level, quote unquote, and I'm putting that in quotes, like, or inverted commas, I think, as you guys say,
Yeah.
why would I, if I only wanted the highest quality soccer, quote unquote, then I would only watch the Champions League. But I don't. I follow a men's third division team, and I base my life around that. So, like, women's soccer is fantastic. Women's soccer is different, but it is now finally getting what it has deserved, I believe, for a long time. And I'm so happy to see it, not only in this country, but also across the ocean in England and other places too. I mean, they had the Clasico with 90-something thousand people for Real Madrid, Barcelona. Like, people are catching on, and it's really, really good. And like you said, the TV money will change. Assuming it continues, will change everything, and will bring more jobs and more chances for women's players to make a professional living playing soccer, not just the very select few.
And just on that, I've got an 18-year-old daughter, and she's got a women's England shirt. Now, they've been very careful of the marketing. Obviously, sizes are different, we get that. But they've actually made the style of shirt specific to the England women's team. But if you're a man, you can get one, and it's in that design, but it is the England women's shirt, which I think is a really clever move. So
I love it. It's good. You should be able to celebrate the women's team, and you shouldn't have to celebrate them in the same way you celebrate the men's team, right? It should be different.
And getting back to sort of like Chattanooga and Exeter, you've got a women's football team, haven't you?
We do. So our women's team is amateur, meaning it plays for about 2 months during the summer, and we're in the middle of that season currently. We just lost our last 2 games. We have 2 more to go. Just 2 more to go. 1 home, 1 away. So we're not, unfortunately. So amateur soccer in the U.S. is crazy, as I'm sure it is everywhere. So there's no pyramid for the women either. But we will be. Our season will finish, and only the top team. So there are 120 teams in the league. It's a nationwide league, all in the same level, the amateur women's soccer. And so the top team in our conference, in our group of 9 teams, I think it is 8 or 9, will go on to the playoffs from the other regions. So unfortunately, it would take an absolute miracle for us to be that top team now that we've lost our last 2. We were undefeated going into the last 2, but we lost our last 2. So it's been, and we've only got 2 more. So it's been a good season. It's been great to have the women's team back. We lost them for a few years, from 2018 to last year. They came back last year. Basically, when that other team came in and hired away the general manager and hired away all the people, they did not have the resources. They didn't have the resources to run both. So they've brought them back, and they're doing it right. The thing that we can say is that it's not. It's very common, as an example, for clubs in this country to name themselves Lady Something, and that's. If that's unique to, or if that's authentic to your club, I'm not throwing stones.
Yeah.
But here we believe that it's important for it to be Chattanooga FC as the crest as well, right? So as an example, Louisville, which is a little bit north of us, has a men's professional team and a women's professional team, completely different names. You would never even know.
Really?
Racing Louisville and Louisville City, completely different names. They're the same club, completely different names. I believe that, in my personal belief, and the belief of Chattanooga Football Club, is that it should be the same. They should be the same. It should be 1 club, 2 teams. So Chattanooga Football Club, it's just Chattanooga FC. And then the women have a light blue crest and the men have a dark blue crest, but it's the same crest. So you know it's women's gear if it has a light blue crest. And you know it's men's gear if it has a dark blue crest. But it is 1 club, and they are truly treated as if they were professionals. They are treated much better than your average women's team, and they are supported well in the stands as well. So it's really important to us that they are, members of the same club, not just a little thing that is done on the side to appease, somebody. They're ours.
And we are similar. You can tell I'm wearing a pink shirt, for example.
I love it.
And the emblem is the same, right? Doesn't matter. Our women's team are treated exactly the same. In fact, one of the community things, we have a thing called the 1931 Club, which is an ode to our biggest attendance, 31 on, sorry, I get confused. 21,000. It was in 1931, right? But basically, we started it with a development player, and it's almost like having a racehorse, and a group of people paid a bit of money, and it's separate to their subs of the 3,500, 4,000 members that we've got. So it enabled us to get a player in. We've now split that and actually do the player, but we're also sponsoring the women's football team because they were struggling, and I lose track, but we're talking at least a 5-figure fee now.
Awesome.
And actually, if you see any of the kit launches, it will have people from the men's team, it will have the women's team, and it will have some of our other teams as well, shall we say. So we're trying to be inclusive with everything, and that's just part of the community of what we do. And we're slightly different because not some people are doing it, but not many. There's only at 92 clubs, I think there's 3 or 4 fans-owned clubs in the top tiers at the moment in England.
So the women's team, where do they play in a professional league, in a semi-professional league, and how does the pyramid over there work for the women?
Yeah, now this is where I'm going to apologise because I'm going to get it all wrong because I'm still learning. They play in a pyramid. They play in the it's called the Southwest. It's a regional league, and basically they're, I think, 2 steps below playing in the second. The Women's Premier League is split, or the WSL is split into 2 big leagues. So and we're lucky because of the logistics of England. Right, you can get pretty much within 7 hours across the country by car, right? And then the other way is about 3 hours. Yeah. So if you start getting really good, then you just travel all over the country. So they've sort of like started to win quite a lot of games. They're starting now to. I'm not sure whether I think they're still amateur, but that will change in time. Yeah, I can see that changing in time. And in terms of gates, they did play at another ground. It was just a logistics thing, right? And they play in another stadium in Exeter occasionally. But then for all their big games, they play at the Exeter City Stadium. But that's got to do with maintenance of the pitch, and the weather's different here. So it's not as easy to maintain football pitches, shall we say. So there was a couple of weekends where there was a game on the Saturday with the men, and there was a ladies' game on the Sunday, and they got 3,500. That's great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, they're growing. So
what's the name of is it Exeter City Stadium? Is that the name of the stadium?
Sorry, it's St James's Park.
Cool.
SJP. We call it SJP, or Somewhere Just Perfect. So that's the marketing slogan at the moment. But yeah, St James's Park. And can I say that there are 2 St James's Parks in England? One apparently is in Newcastle. Ours is the real one. Yeah. So
Newcastle's always been a small club. They've always been a small club.
Yeah, I think they're called the Sports Direct Stadium. I want to go back to one of your comments to that, because when you talk about hooligans, right, in English culture, hooligans has a reference to criminality, fighting, etc. It's not like that in the US soccer, I don't think, is it? What's it like it being in the tribe? Because we have tribalism. What's game day? Or what happens?
Sure. So first of all, with tribalism, luckily we don't have the history of violence. So tribalism is really a positive thing here, meaning it's more like caring about your club too much, but not fighting, right? So we're very lucky with that. And we don't have, like, as an example, we don't have dedicated away areas. I mean, we can if there's another team with a lot of fans, but you look at Italy or Spain or Germany, and there's fences, right? There's big giant fences around the away area. Here, there's nothing like that. So a game day for us, the Chattahooligans, and that's very much tongue in cheek, right? Very much for fun. the first day of Chattanooga Football Club's very first game day ever in 2009. There were 7 people. There were 2,500 people there overall, but there were 7 people there who were there was one guy with a drum and a few people like hanging out, and they kind of coalesced together, the 7 of them, around that first game, and then the second and the third and the fourth. And they said, okay, let's start a supporters group. Let's start a thing. And they named them the Chattahooligans. They came out with a t-shirt, and then it grew, and it's grown and it's grown and it's grown. And so game day now, we have a history of tailgating, meaning people bring out barbecue grills and tents, covered canopies and coolers and beers and chairs. And we tailgate and have a communal experience together, a big giant potluck. Sometimes it's a potluck where everybody brings something from home. It has in the past when we've had very organized people that wanted to. Maybe they did a giant barbecue. Go ahead.
Yeah. When you say potluck, does that mean like bring food and stuff? Sorry.
Yeah. So instead of going to a pub before the game, which I know is a very common, I think, English thing, correct? To go to a pub before a game. We in the South, and this is in the South of America especially. So the United States in the South has a history of, for other sports, doing what's called tailgating. That was putting the tailgate down on your truck. Which I know is not a common thing, and then having food or having drinks or a barbecue or something. So that is very, very common in football, American football. And by the way, I haven't shown you my shirt. Let me take a pause. Let me show you my shirt. For anyone listening to this, you're just going to have to listen to the narration.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, yeah. Okay, I can see this is football. What does it say at the top? What does it say at the top? This is throw ball.
This is throw ball. So
I get it. Brilliant.
And look, and I call it soccer, right? I've called it soccer throughout this conversation because that is the English word that the Americans have named it. But we've always had a little bit of a poke at the others who may not, whatever. So we play in a football stadium, an American football stadium in downtown Chattanooga. It's on turf, so it's on AstroTurf, and so it's good and bad, right? It's bad because it can be harder on players, but it's good because it doesn't degrade. And then outside of that stadium, right outside, there's a giant parking lot, and there's some large grassy areas right up next to the stadium. And on those grassy areas, we have sometimes used other areas, but in general, the grassy areas, we have barbecues and chairs, and people roll in with food, and it's a big party leading up to the game. And then after the game, we go with all of the players across the street to the local brewery, and all the players come and the coaches come, win or lose. We celebrate our wins together, and we mourn our losses together, the men's players or the women's players. Almost everybody shows up, and you hang out with those players, and it really is different than any other sporting event that you would go to, I think, in most places in the world, because normally you're not allowed to get near your heroes. But here you can buy the captain of Chattanooga Football Club a beer and talk to him about whatever. It's a really, really tight-knit community, and it starts with tailgating. Some people get there early in the morning. Most people roll in the afternoon, and most games for us are at 7:30 p.m. So people will start tailgating at 3 or 4 p.m. for the most part. And some people, I said, show up early, but 3 or 4 p.m., game time, we march in with flags and drums and whatnot, finish up the game, win or lose. We wrap up everything, and then we go across the street to the brewery with the players.
Now, that sounds perfect, and I can understand with your climate how that would work, because we play soccer, football, not to be confused with the egg chasing, as we call it, egg chasers.
Beautiful,
right?
Beautiful. Hand in.
And our climate in the winter can be very cold, it can be very wet. There's, in the nicest way, not a chance that anybody would be motivated to be putting the tailgate down, as you call it, in between October and March. It's too cold. So,
and our season doesn't even go through. I mean, it goes through November, but it's a beginning of November. But our season starts in March or April and then goes until it's the whole opposite calendar. So for us, it works great, but it's very unique to the Southern United States. Like we have friends who we used to play from Michigan, and they go to a bar no matter what time it is, what time of the year it is. They go to a bar because in Michigan it's cold, and so they go to a bar and they pregame at a bar. They don't do a big tailgate, and then they go to the match, and then they go back to another bar. So it's every place is unique, and I think those are unique game day conditions or unique game day traditions. And I think that's part of what makes every club beautiful, because every club does it. Not every club, but many clubs do it a little differently.
And can I just say, look, a little story for you?
Please.
There's a phrase around Exeter City, win or lose, we're on the booze, right? And that comes back. I talked about Newcastle United and this flag, 1980-81, right? Where when they were doing the BBC, were discussing the game, they asked the manager what's going to happen if you. And we had a great cup run. We ended up losing to Spurs, Tottenham Hotspurs in the quarterfinal, right, of the FA Cup, and they went on to win it. And they coined that phrase, and around Exeter, it's a bit of a phrase: "Win or lose, we're on the booze." So you need to probably we'll get some joint T-shirts made up about
I
that.
love that. I love that. So, what is an Exeter City game day like? What is the average game day? What makes it? Besides just the game itself, what surrounds it?
Right. Okay. So there's a bit for me. I'll give you. I'm a bit weird, but because I live 180 miles away from Exeter, and I did 40 games last season, home and away. So that. I'm a bit bonkers.
Me too.
So I now I get up a lot earlier, so I'll be on the road by 7. On the motorway system, you can be there in the winter because the tourists aren't down in the southwest because it's a very popular tourist resort. It can take you 2.5 hours, 3 hours, or it can take you 5-6 hours to get there with the traffic. So we tend to get there early. Actually, we don't have a tailgate, but there's a lot more fan zones, as they call it.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, Exeter's fan zone has been growing over the last 15 years. It's called Red Square, and basically you go there. There's deli foods, there's bars, there's music, and so most people try and get there by 12. On a sunny day, they'll be there at 12 o'clock drinking because there's big bars and stuff. And if you're a local in the city, you just rock up on a bus and or walk up.
Do they sell beers at the stadium or no?
Yeah, we sell beers at the football stadium. You're not allowed to drink in the stadium because of the historical reasons.
Right. Okay. So everyone starts drinking early then at noon before they get into the stadium.
Yeah, unless you're driving like me, because you have to drive home afterwards. But so the game normally always kicks off at 3 o'clock.
Mm.
It's not so much the same in the Premier League because of the TV. They play it all times today. They can play at 11 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock. You wouldn't believe it. So we normally kick off at 3 o'clock. Game's normally over by 5 o'clock, which normally is starting to get dark, if not dark, with the climate. So by that point, most people leave the area and sort of go home. So there isn't that after party type thing. Evening matches, which are normally the midweek games, like Tuesday night, Wednesday night, they would be about 7:30 or 7:45 kickoff or 8 o'clock. And then obviously it's a similar thing happens. But for away games, right, our soccer club, football clubs tend to have, like me, fans all over the country. And if you look at our fans trust, I think 35% of them don't actually, they're from Exeter, but they don't live in Exeter. They'll be working in London, they'll be working in Manchester. So you can, you'll find that they'll get there by car, they'll get there by train. And that's where the pub culture comes in, because you obviously need a meeting point. Then you meet. So it's not unheard of, social media to arrive. And, I've been to a ground just near where I live, a place called Northampton, where they make shoes. And it was the end of the season and we were getting promoted. So it was a year and a half ago. And there was 1,600 Exeter fans there. And there was multiple bars had been booked up and taken over. And do you have pyrotechnics and stuff? Because there's a little bit of pyro goes on outside of the grounds, but not in the grounds, because it's not, the police don't like it. So
we don't. Chattanooga as a city does not allow them. There's some laws that don't allow them. So and to be honest, it's not in our culture either. So it is for many soccer supporters groups in the U.S. They do flares and smoke and all those things, but for the Chattahooligans, it never has been a tradition of ours. And so to do it would be just not us. So we also strangely enough don't do any organized cursing. So all of our chants are clever. And now anyone is free to say what they want, right? But
Yeah.
as a group, for those leading the cheers and doing the things, and we have drums, we have a lot of times saxophones and trumpets, and it gets
Brilliant.
wild. It gets wild. There's flags and there's tifo and there's banners and there's all the things, but we don't do any organized cursing. So it tends to be as clever as possible and as creative as possible to make sure we can still absolutely ruin the day of the away team, which the away bench is right in front of our section. So we usually about 5 minutes into the game, the coach sends them to warm up, and they warm up for the entire game because they can't hear anything.
Brilliant. And just so you know, with us, we also have a big drum. Our group was called the Red Legion. It's now not called the Red Legion, but not all grounds allow drums.
Why is that? I've noticed that in English football, I don't see drums hardly ever. Is that just not traditional? Is it not allowed? Do you have any insight there?
It's partly cultural in terms of it was seen as, I don't know, not fashionable, shall we say? But then there was culturally it changed, and so for example, Crystal Palace in the Premier League,
yes,
they have the Homesdale ultras. They call themselves ultras, but they're not like European ultras. They all wear black shirts, and they all just want to make atmosphere. And it's to do with the relationship. So at Exeter, for example, there's a very close bond. Everybody knows everybody. The directors know, the noisy boys and girls. So we introduced it, and we also started to take it away, as did a few other clubs. You'll find in non-league, if you look at any of the social media, it's a really big thing. And they also, so for example, we played at Wembley for a playoff game, and there's around Wembley, there's 4 big bar complexes, famous ones, and there was a march from the Torch bar up the Wembley Way, and you're talking a couple of thousand people were in that march with drums, with pyrotechnics actually coming through. So the police don't like the pyro bit, but the drums is coming back in. And it's also about that, making that calypso noise, and it's just being noisy. Exeter fans are very, very, very noisy, right, for the size of club. So, and you sound like you're the same, yeah. So, which is another thing we have in common, yeah.
Yeah, I think it, and I don't know if you feel this way, but I think there's a little bit of especially in English football, right, which we get so much on the TV here, but the bigger clubs, your Manchester Cities, your Arsenals, the atmosphere is very sterile, and I think that's, and you see that across the world too, to be fair. There's not a lot of Borussia Dortmunds, right, with the working class folks. And it's not just working class folks that can be loud, but it tends to be that those working class folks are normally the demographic that's really pushing. And it's a shame to see that it seems to me, at least, that those really, really fighting and pushing for and really caring. I don't want to say no one cares, but when you put too much money in football, or you take away the ability of the everyman to go to a game, you lose not just the access, which is of course a moral and ethical problem, but you lose the thing that makes it matter, that enthusiasm, that getting drenched in a beer, as an example, in a section because somebody behind you was so excited they threw their beer in the air, which I know is not common when you can't drink in the stands, but is a different experience than everybody just clapping because they're excited that they scored. It's you want to experience it together with people that care a lot. And I think that just like live music, live sports are really special, experiencing it in large groups of other people, and you can only be there once. And man, when people don't have a big group of passionate people, and there's a reason that the I assume it's the same there. It might not be, but our section, the Chattahooligan section, is section 109. The sections around 109 are usually the most crowded because there's the most people that have come to join. Maybe they don't want to get in the party, but they want to be adjacent to the party.
Yeah.
There's something really special.
we have the it's called the Big Bang, right? Which is and we're very proud of it because of the Hillsborough disaster when 96 people passed, and the one that passed afterwards a few years later. So there was 97 fans at a stadium that basically got crushed, and there was, stadiums were in a very poor state. So it basically means that in the Premier League and Championship, you pretty much can have an all-seated stadium. We're lucky in League One and League Two. We're in League One that we only have to have a certain percentage of seats. So we've got a big bank. It holds 4,000 people, right? Which is the main noisy section. And there's a heart painted on the top of the terrace, and a covered terrace. And basically, that's where the noise is. And it's not on, for a big match day, it will be literally a wall of noise when it's a full house. It's 4,000 people. There'll be there may only be one drum, actually, but there's flags and banners, and I don't know whether you do banners, but we've got. Have you heard about the Jay Stansfield and Adam Stansfield at Exeter?
No, I have not. Please.
Okay. Basically, we have a shirt banner made. A sponsor made it, and it's the size also almost of, I would say, half the terrace. It's huge, sure. Right? And it's in memory of a player that passed through bowel cancer. I'm trying to think when he passed now. His son has just played for Exeter on loan, and he was at Exeter but went to the Premier League with Fulham when he was 16. And we retired the number 9 shirt because his father wore the number 9 shirt for 9 years. Sorry, 9 years out of respect. One other person wore it, and this was start of last season, kid you not, where his son came back and they showed him the number 9 shirt. He scored, how many goals did he score? I've lost track, about 15 goals. And he scored a hat-trick on the last day of the season. And basically, we have the huge banner that says Stansfield on it. And we even took it to Liverpool in the Cup at Anfield. We take it and it goes to Wembley. It goes out for big games when we go away from home. But it needs to be a huge stadium for it to go into. I'll send you a photo.
That's beautiful, man. I got goosebumps, I kid you not, during that story. The idea of somebody's passing away and then their jersey being retired and then the son coming back and playing and scoring, that is stuff of movies, man. That is amazing.
Yeah, it's better than Wrexham. I'll tell you that now. So
I'll be honest with you. I don't understand the other than Ryan Reynolds is a very beautiful man. I don't understand the current obsession with Wrexham. It's probably because I'm getting older and I'm getting more grumpy. Like, you new kids and your Netflix thing. Like, I don't know. Everybody's very, very obviously attached here to Wrexham, but I don't know. Pick a team that doesn't involve watching a TV show about them.
I know that they're making a fortune out of merchandise going to the US at the moment, and the reason I know that is because of the industry I work in, and somebody was talking to me about it at a trade fair and was telling I won't say on camera how much, but it's phenomenal. So
and the other thing is they're they're allowed to spend however much money they want, right? But they are ruining the wage structure of every league they play in. They're not that different than Manchester City. Now, are they going to be able to spend what Manchester City spends if they make the Premier League? Of course not. But they're in the lower divisions. What they're doing now is akin to Manchester City coming in with oil money and spending whatever they want. And while they're certainly allowed to do that, I don't find that a wonderful thing. Right? It's whatever. It's the New York Yankees. It's Manchester United. It's any big, huge sports thing that comes in and has more money than everyone else. It's not a Cinderella story. This is a small club with a big money takeover.
Yeah, and I'm going to be positive. I don't mind where they go with it, right? But Wrexham, I think, is smaller than Exeter, for example.
Mm.
Whereas Manchester has got two football clubs, and there's
Yep.
huge potential. And Manchester City's global potential is not there. Yeah, not there yet. I mean, I saw a kid in local town today wearing a Man City top. And I thought, oh, that's unusual. You know, whereas if you see a Man United top, it's not unusual, or Chelsea or Arsenal or Liverpool. So Wrexham, I don't think will ever get to that. And it's a nice story. Let them have their story; it will be fine. So, how far they can go in the brutal world of football, who knows? Because it's brutal here. You know,
And they're not building. I don't. You mentioned something earlier with and I'm going to put some words in your mouth, and you can change them if you don't feel they're fair. But it seems to me that Exeter is building sustainably, right? In a sustainable, trying to move up the ladder slowly with progress, right? But to do it in a sustainable way. When you have somebody come in, look at Chelsea, right? They had Roman Abramovich spend all the money in the world, and they're already a big club. But then they need the next owner to spend all the money in the world. They're clearly not, no matter what financial fair play says, living within their means. And you see it across leagues all across the world. Is a lot of clubs don't build sustainably. They have a rich owner that comes in and spends a ton of money and doesn't build a base for that club. And if something happens, look at Leicester City. Unfortunately, something happened to their owner, and they're in real financial trouble. And I'm not trying to wish any ill will on anyone, but I think there's something really special and really good about a club trying to build sustainably and trying to build in a way that leaves the club for the next 100 years rather than just for the next 10.
Yeah, and do you know what? That's about where we are as a club. And it sounds good that you're trying to build it in the same way, because could we play in the Premiership? Probably. I'm 52, not in my lifetime. I don't think. Could we get into the Championship? Yeah, we probably could. Are we ready for the Championship yet? No. Ground's not big enough. It only holds just under 9,000, and we're selling out a lot of games now, even for a non-fashionable team that we're playing. And after losing the last game of the season, we lost 6 games before our last game, and we sold out. And so we're never going to get into the Championship until we build a new stadium. So your team following the model we are, it's the way to be. And do you know what? We don't care, and it's easier for you because you don't get promoted and stuff. But it's harder for us because there's, like you say, there'll be somebody will come and buy Northampton Town or another football club in the league, and they'll pump £7 million into it, and they'll go into the Championship. 10 years time, what are they going to be like? So, yeah.
And we definitely don't have the same thing. What we do have is I have 10 years of following Chattanooga Football Club as an amateur team. And when we used to play for 2 to 3 months a year, if it went for 3 months, it meant we made it deep in the playoffs and we had a long run. And I can tell you that it matters the same amount now that it mattered then. And if Chattanooga Football Club were playing on Sundays in a men's league, or if Chattanooga Football Club is playing in the MLS, it doesn't matter to me. It's my club. Yeah. And wherever they play, I follow, and that's not conditional and has nothing to do with where or how they're playing. It just, they're playing, so I'm there. And I think that that's something that Exeter has as well, and that's the mark of something that's more than just a fun thing to do on a game day.
And do you know what? I'm conscious of time. That seems a really great point, because I agree with you. We're a similar football club, and us having a share in you guys, we're incredibly proud of that. We might be buying a share in a Greek football club between you and me coming up shortly. And we're building links with FC United in Manchester, Motherwell in Scotland. That's the way to be, and I'm going to ask you, can we follow your progress and talk? Let's talk a little bit after the World Cup, the end of your season, and just maybe in about 8 to 10 weeks, and see how you're getting on. Yeah,
I would love that, and I would love that, and I'd love an update on Exeter at that point, because you'll be in the season, I would imagine, or getting close to the start of the season at that point. Yeah.
We start the season on the and this will be a Yatesism. I think it's about the 9th of August. and it finishes normally in May, but it was a bit weird this year. It went on forever because of the World Cup.
Well, I look forward to just from this conversation. I'm even more interested, and I'm looking forward to following Exeter's progress, and I hope you have a wonderful season. And I can't wait until we chat again. Thank you so much for allowing me to be on your pod and to chat about the thing that I hold most dear in Chattanooga Football Club. And I can see that we're two of a kind in that we're both a little crazy for our football clubs.
Yeah, we share similar values. Have a great one. And can I just say now, I'm going to bed.
I don't blame you. Thanks for making it work on my time zone. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. Take care, and we'll stay in touch.